On the slopes of the Nebrodi Mountains, nestling amongst the terrace vineyards and olive plantations, lies Militello Rosmarino, a typical Sicilian hill town. Every August, the people of Militello celebrate Festival Week, a homage to their patron saint, with a program of music and dancing, or simply promenading. Militello's local artist and most famous citizen is hosting his own party to start the celebrations. What is unique is that he's an Englishman, John Picking.
Cazzo via la figlia mia. Oh mamma, mi voglio maritare. Oh mamma, mi voglio maritare. Oh mamma, mi voglio maritare. Figlia mia, cosa dai, mamma mia, pensaci tu. Figlia mia, cosa dai, mamma mia, pensaci tu.
Tocca ammazzare.
Since moving here from his native Lancashire over 12 years ago, John Picking's reputation as an artist has spread throughout Europe. In fact, the party is also a good excuse to show off his latest work to the Italian art critics, many of whom have travelled here from Rome and Milan.
Queste processioni, queste feste, queste cose sono per me un fatto sociale molto importante, no? Nella vita siciliana. Cose anche che mancano un po' in Inghilterra.
John Picking spent his childhood in Wigan, and encouraged by his school and parents, he decided to become a painter. But even as a student, he felt more drawn to the soft colours and landscapes of the Mediterranean than the harsher reality of this northern industrial town where he went to art college. John's parents still live in the home he grew up in, just outside Wigan. Even as a boy, they realised he was determined to become a painter.
I knew when he went to the grammar school and I bought him an outfit for rugby, it would be no use. He had to get a doctor's note. It didn't suit him. But anyway, he won for the school at chess. Yes.
It was after he left the grammar school that he went into art, you know.
It's been mostly on my side. Now, on his father's side, it's mostly carpentry. His great-great-grandfather used to build windmills.
Windmills and water wheels.
You know.
From Shropshire.
And his great-grandfather was the head gamekeeper at Hayhall.
When I was at work, I was a foreman joiner, you know, and of course, I've taught John a lot. He's very handy with tools, you know.
That's one of my favourites, that one. You know, it's a ball, isn't it? Or is it a coffee jug? I'm not sure. But I like that. Yes, I like the colours about it. And I fancy there it's like a plant pot there, a plant. You have to use your own ideas, what it is you have. I was a bit disappointed with these abstract paintings at first, you know, but you see, they get used to the colours and doing this abstract work. I think it helps them to improve with painting. I think he's getting good at it now. They seem to have taken to John well in Sicily. When he first went, they couldn't do enough for him. People were coming with food for him, and yes, the police came and said if there was anything he needed, let him know. So he was in good hands, wasn't he?
These good hands helped John to build his present home and studio on a rocky slope above Militello.
Well, this seemed a pretty unpromising site to attempt to build anything on. As you can see, it's very steep and very rough ground indeed. But once I got the bulldozer here and started to level off this area, and all this earth was then moved out, it made quite a large area in which to build.
Most of John's early canvases reflected the prevailing traditions of the British abstract painters of the 50s and 60s, but his style has both mellowed and matured since his arrival in Sicily. The brooding and often surreal spirit of this strange island, which has been ravaged by poverty and earthquakes, inspires the formal structure of John Picking's paintings.
This landscape, of course, was completely different. It was full of light and colour. It's appealed to lots of British painters. And in fact, if you think of someone like Turner, who many would say was the greatest British painter, his work, to me, is very much influenced by Italy, and that links with a classical concept of painting, which has always appealed to me, and seems to me to be a way forward rather than backwards. Ciao Vincenzo,
Ciao.
come stai?
Non c'è male, tu?
Non c'è male. Dove vai?
John Picking is not only obsessed by landscapes, but also with the people of Sicily. And to appreciate fully their way of life, he's had to become familiar with the local Sicilian dialect.
Sì, e lì le lasci così, senza niente, insomma,
Sì, ora io vado fra...
Ma
a
non
casa
capisco.
mia, a casa mia, a casa mia. Sì, sotto un albero della casa gli alberi.
Here in Sicily, I feel that I can look at the landscape directly, and it makes suggestions to me, and it leads me on. I feel here there's sort of source material that's unending, and every day I go out for a walk or I take a sketchbook, there's almost a sense of frustration that it's going to be impossible in such a short span to use all this material. And also, at the same time, that I want to simplify, I want to arrive at something which is going to be that image which I dream of being able to paint, and yet have to content myself with those kind of faint shadows of the actual paintings. Through the years, the themes which I would call most central, I suppose I could say there have been about half a dozen of them. And they recur over and over again. They're my kind of obsessions, and they perhaps go dormant for a while, and then reoccur in a slightly modified form. The pergola idea is a thing which fits in, for me, to a landscape rather as in a Gauguin Tahitian landscape there might be a local deity. Then for me, here in Sicily, there might be either a central object such as a shrine, an altar, or a pergola. The linear structure that I've used as a starting point in most of my paintings leads on to a development of a colour structure. I use colour perhaps in a more abstract way than I use line. I would say that that is more of the emotional layer of the painting.
John's first real friends in the area around Militello were the local peasants. He was immediately accepted. For them, being a working artist is nothing strange, no stranger than the traditions and rituals of daily life, unaltered in this part of the world for centuries.
It's as though here you've got the past and the present and the future happening now. You get a feeling of a community that's going to carry on with certain techniques from a pre-industrial period, and they're going to bypass that industrial period, and they're going to go beyond it.
John was helped to buy his Land Rover by the people of Militello. In his turn, he encourages local painters. Every year, he organizes an exhibition of Sicilian art at Militello's town hall to coincide with the August festival week.
The fact of me being a painter operating within a community, just as the local blacksmith or the lorry driver or the man in the bar or the one on the farm, that I'm accepted as having a function to play within this small community. Ma tu forse non arrivi, stai troppo lontano, sei. Ah, no, sì, sì, sotto il tellaio, vedi? Comunque bisogna misurare un po'.
Buono pure dall'Inghilterra dicono ma erano che sono giocatori di gara, sai.
I find in British society that we tend to be rather segregated. I make friends in England because I work with people, or possibly we go to the same pub, or there's some reason other than the fact that we are paesani or from the same town. In a small community like this, and its close relation to the landscape and its long traditions, the fact that there's very little movement of people except the emigrants, but the basic family life is fairly consistent. People don't move so much as they would in a British town, and therefore you get a kind of stability, and there's a kind of way of life, a role in the community which is different from Britain.
One of the most dominant influences on Sicilian life is the Catholic Church. Its rich architecture and complex traditions give John a wealth of material for his paintings, reflecting the florid style and brooding intensity of Sicilian religion.
This is a rather Baroque kind of shape, but I simplified it quite a lot. I'd been very interested in early Sienese painting and their form of perspective. It's a rather like an isometric projection, and seen on the diagonal. I also wanted to include the sins, the examination of the conscience of the people going to confession.
Even though he's not a practicing Catholic, it's expected of John, in common with the rest of his neighbors, that he participate in the major religious events of the town, and none more sacred than the emotive Sicilian funeral.
As a respect to the family involved, the presence of practically the whole community is habitual on these occasions. It's a kind of solidarity with that family in that moment, and I think it helps the family to perhaps externalize more than it will be possible in Britain. The Sicilian cemetery is nearly always at a distance from the town. People don't like to build their houses too near it. You notice them with the wall, very often in an open landscape.
the funeral shows a respect for the bereaved family and unites the whole town in these tragic circumstances, just as they are united for more joyous occasions.
The most important religious festival for John was in 1976, when he married Maria, a local girl.
No, ci vuole ancora. Sta attento perché assale.
Io stavo lavorando all'uncinetto davanti a casa di mia madre. Allora ho visto Johnny che dipingeva la casa vicino alla casa di mia mamma. E ci siamo conosciuti per ballare. Dove si organizzavano di giovani, organizzavano delle feste da ballo. Allora Benedetto mi portava.
Mi fa scanire.
Nadia, fate più qui, per favore.
No, se devo aspettare con me. Non lo vuole mettere.
I'd been here a few years by that time, so that I realized just how difficult it was, and I realized that it was the kind of relationship that you had to take seriously right from the beginning, so I had to make my decisions quite early.
Oltre che lo conoscevano tanti amici, si era comportato sempre bene John. Non so, il cuore mi diceva.
There was no possibility that I could invite her out in the English sense, so that at a certain point I asked her whether she would like to become my fiancée. And the next stage was then to try to persuade her parents and the rest of the family.
Io piangevo, dico io Johnny me lo prendo lo stesso. Dico io mi sposo, sono maggiorenne, è stata in più mia sorella. Più grande di me, una zia che l'ha convinto, mio padre.
Nonno, Ginci.
Ginci.
Cheers. Cheers. I'm quite happy to have a very sort of simple, single kind of traditional relationship. And I would say that I'm in a favorable position, that as an English man, I'm probably more willing to collaborate domestically than many of the Sicilians would be. So that also Maria might find it easier, that she has more freedom than she can use married to an Englishman. I think the other way around would be more difficult. I think if it was a Sicilian man married to an English girl, that would be a far more difficult kind of marriage.
Cioè, quello del 16 agosto, eravate prima di questo.
Here, being part of a family is a help to the individual. Before that, I was an isolated individual, so that in terms of support, I had to rely on just my own personal financial resources. Becoming a member of a family here means that resources are pooled. If, for example, someone is working and someone else isn't, then the person who is working will help the other members of the family. We have received help from other members of the family, and we give help to other members of the family financially in this way, so that, in a sense, it's a kind of insurance policy without the necessity of a welfare state that functions.
I bambini sono troppo cattivi.
The last couple of years have been important for John Picking. There have been exhibitions in London, Edinburgh, Milan, Naples, Messina, and Manchester, where his agent runs a gallery. Recently, his work has started to appear in America, an acknowledgement of his growing reputation.
Non lo so! Se lo legano là, ognuno per là, ogni cosa per la sua. E sei isolato? Ve ne vate sotto, ve ne vate sotto, ve ne vate sotto. Per favore, se no si fumano e poi siamo a mare.
Practically all Sicilian towns have their own patron saint, although even the good citizens can't remember exactly what he looks like. So, once a year, San Biagio's portrait is solemnly paraded around the town and then taken back up the hill to the church, guarded, as ever, by the representatives of church and state, each vying to be the most important. This curious ceremony is not an irreverent mass communion, but a symbol of the prosperity that San Biagio provides for the town. Bread for all. Like all festivals on the island, the original roots are pre-Christian, and these pagan rituals, although disapproved of by the church, are still practiced by the people.
Non guardare i nostri peccati, ma la fede della tua Chiesa, e donale unità e pace secondo la tua volontà, tu che vivi e regni nei secoli dei secoli. La pace del Signore sia sempre con voi. Cantiamoci tutti un augurio di pace.
I think that San Biagio brings the town together more than the Sunday Mass, the ordinary Sunday Mass would. People come from all over the world to return to Militello. The emigrants come for San Biagio.